On a gray, dreary morning in New Orleans, October 21st, 1995, inside a tour bus, Shannon Hoon, the golden voice of Blind Melon, lay motionless. A dose of cocaine had stolen his life at just 28 years old. He had it all: fame from no rain, the love of his partner Lisa, and their newborn daughter, Nico. But behind the glitz and glamour, things weren't so serene. The silver ring he always wore on his left hand, something his friends said he never took off, vanished that morning, just like Shannon himself. To millions, he was a star, but to himself, he was a broken soul, haunted by demons he never named. Did the pressure of fame crush him? Or was there a deeper secret from his past, hidden in the home videos he filmed? His life was a song, brilliant highs mixed with painful lows. What made this star fall? Stick around as we uncover Shannon Hoon's story, from small-town dreams to a tragic end. Chapter 1, Early Pain, foreshadowed Shannon Hoon's departure. When Shannon Hoon died at 28, one detail baffled everyone. The silver ring he always wore on his left hand was suddenly gone. Friends said he never took it off, as if it were a talisman or a reminder of something he couldn't let go of. No one ever saw him remove it. Why did it matter so much? To understand, we need to go back to a small town called Dayton, where the dream began, and where things started to crack. Dayton, Indiana, 1975. 8-year-old Shannon Hoon sat cross-legged by a Beatles vinyl record. A dim lamp lit his face, his eyes sparkling as John Lennon's voice filled the room. Born in 1967, he was the son of a construction worker and a bar manager. His family wasn't wealthy, but music, from Bob Dylan to the Grateful Dead, was Shannon's free world, where he dreamed of being a superhero, escaping this stifling town. But Dayton wasn't kind to big dreams. If you don't go to Purdue, you're a failure, folks whispered. His father, a former athlete, pushed him into football and wrestling, as if trying to relive his own dreams through his son. Shannon felt trapped, judged by the town's prying eyes. He fought back with music. At 18, he wrote Change, his first song, a defiant declaration, a cry from a heart desperate to break free. He joined a glam metal band, Stiff Kitten, in 1985, but darkness was creeping in. Shannon fell into drugs and alcohol, arrested 4 times before he was 20. His mother, Nell, lived in fear. Every time I heard an ambulance siren, I thought it was Shannon. One odd detail stood out. Shannon always wore an old silver ring on his left hand. Friends said he never took it off, as if it were a talisman or a reminder of something he couldn't forget. One spring night in 1990, Dayton reeked of cigarette smoke and blaring police sirens. A drug raid hit the house where Shannon was hanging out. In the dark, he bolted out the back door, heart pounding, and jumped into an old car, dust flying under the moonlight. At 23, he left Dayton behind, driving straight to Los Angeles, chasing his dream of stardom. But something haunted Shannon. A vague rumor hinted he might have been abused as a child, a wound that could explain why he was always running from himself. Though there's no proof, his distant gaze in old home videos seems to tell an unspoken story. The young Shannon Hoon was a blazing fire, but the scars from Dayton, the town's judgment, the pressure from family, were etched deep, like a curse. He left Dayton behind, but did Dayton ever let him go? Did Shannon truly escape, or did those old shadows follow him to Los Angeles? Chapter 2, Blind Melon's birth and Shannon's string of tragedies. That night, the room fell silent as Shannon started to sing. No one knew they were witnessing the birth of a star, or the beginning of a light starting to fade. Picture Shannon Hoon at a Los Angeles party in 1990, guitar in hand. He sang Change, his voice soaring, cutting through the air. Brad Smith and Roger Stevens, 2 musicians from Mississippi, stared at him like they'd found the missing piece. That was the moment Blind Melon was born. A band of misfits, ready to take on the world. In 1991, Blind Melon signed a $500,000 deal with Capitol Records. Their debut album dropped in 1992, but it was No Rain in 1993 that set everything ablaze. That song, with its heartfelt B-Girl music video, ruled MTV and sold over 3 million copies. Shannon, with his long hair and soul-stirring voice, became an icon of Generation X, singing about sadness beneath a joyful facade. Lisa Krause, His high school sweetheart from Dayton was his anchor. She said whenever Shannon got anxious, he'd twist that silver ring on his finger. He never explained why, just said, "It keeps me grounded." Fame hit like a hurricane. Then he stood beside Axl Rose, a friend of his sister, in the recording studio. "Don't Cry, November Rain." Those mournful ballads featured Shannon's voice blending in. TV screens showed him in the videos, eyes shining. But off camera, friends said he'd retreat to dark rooms, watching himself sing. Success was a spotlight, but also a weight. The media dubbed him a new star, but scrutinized his every move. The temptations of parties and drugs crept into his mind. Shannon started filming everything, not to share, but as if he was tracking himself, like a man afraid his own mind might betray him. Friends said sometimes he'd stare into the camera like he was confessing to someone who wasn't there. One tape was never found. A crew member said Shannon once erased a recording himself, saying only, "No one needs to see that." What was it? No one knows. He told friends, "I don't believe it'll stay like this forever." Shannon's happiness was fragile as mist. He smiled for the crowds, but his eyes hid fear. Fame was a brilliant flame, but also a burden, pulling him towards self-destruction, a path that led to his tragic death just years later. He stood at the peak, but a chasm waited below, and that silver ring on his finger seemed powerless to hold him back. Maybe that first night he sang wasn't the birth of a star. Maybe it was the start of his fall. When the world adored Shannon, why was he filming those uneasy home videos? The stage lights blazed, and Shannon Hoon stood there, his voice echoing like it could embrace the whole world. But in that moment, in 1993, he chose to tear himself apart. Was it rebellion or surrender? That night, at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, before 13,000 fans, he stripped naked, urinated on stage, and laughed like it was a joke. The crowd jeered, and police handcuffed him as the lights went out. Headlines screamed, "Crazy rock star!" Shannon, who once dreamed of being a superhero, was now seen as a reckless mess. The days that followed were swallowed by darkness. The media hounded him, calling Blind Melon a one-hit wonder. Other scandals, fights with security, drunken nights, made things worse. But the most haunting moment came at Woodstock '94. High on LSD, Shannon staggered under the lights, singing like he was pleading for rescue. Friends said he wasn't Shannon anymore, just a shadow. Lisa watched from afar, heartbroken. She noticed the silver ring, the one he'd twist when anxious, was missing for the first time, left alone on a table after the show. Shame ate at Shannon. He'd been that Dayton kid, craving love, but now he was judged as a disgrace. One night, he turned on his high-8 camcorder, stared into the lens, and muttered, "I don't know who I am anymore." His voice trembled, like he faced an invisible trial. Friends said he filmed not to preserve memories, but to find the person he'd lost. Yet every time he looked at the screen, he saw a stranger, a Shannon erased by fame and drugs. Cocaine and alcohol became his refuge. He drank to forget the mockery, used drugs to dull the sense of failure. But the more he hid, the more he felt he was hurting Lisa and shaming Blind Melon. "I don't deserve them," he whispered once, drunk, eyes red. The world's judgment and his inner battle were like twin blades, slicing his heart. Shannon wasn't just losing control of his actions, he was losing himself. Shame wasn't just pain, it was a fire that consumed him. Every scandal, every scornful glance pushed him deeper into self-destruction. He'd been a radiant flame, but now only smoke remained, leading to his tragic death 2 years later. The silver ring, once his tether to reality, lay still, a reminder of the man he couldn't reclaim. Did Shannon forget who he was, or did he let the darkness swallow him on purpose? Chapter 4. Did Kurt Cobain's death wake Shannon Hoon? The stage lights of The Late Show with David Letterman glowed, but the camera zoomed in on Shannon Hoon's face, his eyes red, holding back a storm. On April 8, 1994, he sang "Change," a sloppy question mark scrawled on his forehead, a tribute to Kurt Cobain, found dead in Seattle that day. The audience clapped, but Shannon stood frozen, as if the stage's glamour couldn't hide the blow of Cobain's death. That was the moment he saw himself in the mirror, a falling star. Cobain's death? was a wake-up call. Shannon was terrified, seeing his own reflection in a peer consumed by fame. He checked into a 30-day rehab, determined to start over. When he returned, hope flickered. In July 1995, Lisa gave birth to their daughter, Nico Blue. One quiet afternoon, Shannon sat by Nico, his finger brushing her soft hair. "I want to live for her," he whispered, eyes bright. For the first time since Woodstock, he wore the silver ring again, as if reminding himself he couldn't fall again. But that light faded fast. The tour for Soup dragged Shannon back into Temptation's whirlpool. The band hired addiction counselors, but he fired them after a week. Cocaine seeped into his veins, and the darkness returned. One night, high, he turned on his high-8 camcorder and whispered, "I see the demons. They're coming." He replayed the tape, as if waiting to hear himself confess something. Friends stood outside his door, worried but distant, as if no one dared enter his broken world. "We didn't know how to help," a bandmate sighed. Shannon was drowning in pain. He wanted to be a good father, but every morning, he woke up feeling like a failure. The media still called him a wreck, and friends drifted away. He felt abandoned, betrayed by himself. One night, a friend found him asleep under a table, clutching a scribbled drawing by Nico, murmuring, "I don't deserve them." His face was gaunt, as if the world had drained his life. Helplessness choked him. A man desperate for redemption, unable to escape himself. Pain wasn't just sadness, it was a blade cutting deep. Every failure, every distant glance, pushed Shannon closer to his tragic end. The silver ring, his tether to reality, sat in a hotel drawer, next to an empty bottle, a period on the days when hope still lingered. What were the demons Shannon spoke of? Addiction, or a deeper secret? Chapter 5. Shannon Hoon's Total Collapse. Under the dim glow of a New Orleans hotel, Shannon Hoon stood silent, broken glass sparkling at his feet like fragments of his shattered life. He'd been Blind Melon's fire, but by 1995, he saw himself only as a failure. Did he destroy everything, or did fame turn him into a stranger? He screamed into the dark, "I don't deserve them!" A haunting confession etched into the air. Blind Melon recorded Soup in New Orleans, a city steeped in parties and temptation. The album was creative, with horns and banjo, but it had no hits, limping to number 28 on the charts. Critics ignored it, and fans wanted another No Rain. Shannon couldn't deliver. He told friends, "We're under a microscope, like little puppies." Tensions tore the band apart as Shannon demanded more royalties. Roger Stevens sighed. He wasn't Shannon anymore, just someone else. Self-blame crushed him. One night, Lisa found him curled up in a corner, his high-8 camcorder filming himself. He muttered, "What have I done to them?" Then shut it off, but didn't erase the tape, as if he wanted someone, someday, to understand his pain. Lisa saw the silver ring, the one he'd twist when anxious, tossed aside next to a bottle. "You're not yourself anymore," she whispered, but Shannon just bowed his head. He drank to forget, used cocaine to ease the guilt. A crew member said, once, Shannon woke up shaking, asking what day it was, but couldn't remember Nico's birthday. He felt he was hurting Lisa, dimming Blind Melon's shine. The media still called him a wreck, and he believed them. Each hit of drugs was a self-inflicted wound, as if he wanted to punish himself. Self-blame wasn't just pain. It was a fire that consumed him. Shannon once dreamed of changing the world, but now he saw himself as a burden. The silver ring, once his anchor, had lost its power. He sank deeper into darkness, inching toward the tragic death that seemed fated from his brightest days. Did Shannon really want to save Blind Melon, or had he let himself dissolve in guilt? Chapter 6. Death came for Shannon, but that's not the whole story. On the night of October 20th, 1995, the stage lights at Numbers Club in Houston were dim, and Shannon Hoon stepped out, his eyes empty. He once sang to save himself, but now he was a staggering shadow. Did he give up, or did the world let him go? High on cocaine, his voice faltered, the show sluggish like his soul. Fans shook their heads, but Shannon didn't see them anymore. After the gig, he partied on the tour bus to New Orleans, cocaine coursing through him like a deadly river. Lisa and Nico had left the tour, leaving him alone in the dark. A crew member said. Shannon sat by himself, twisting the silver ring, then threw it into a corner of the bus. He muttered, nothing left to hold on to. On the morning of October 21st, he wandered New Orleans streets, chasing drugs under a gray dawn. He returned to the bus, crawled into bed, and never woke up. The sound engineer found him still, his face peaceful, like he was sleeping. His death was ruled a cocaine overdose, but one theory chills the bone. Shannon was pushed back on tour too soon after rehab, a puppet of the music industry. A stranger rumor. He left a note on the bus saying, "I'm sorry, Nico." No one found it, but it lingers like a ghostly last word. A friend said, the night before, Shannon watched his high 8 tapes, staring at himself, whispering, "I've gone too far," like he knew he couldn't come back. Despair strangled Shannon. He'd been the boy who dreamed of being a superhero, but now he was a broken man, defeated by fame, addiction, and himself. The media forgot his talent, calling him a failure. Friends stood back, unsure how to help. He felt abandoned, rejected by the world. The silver ring, once his talisman, lay in a corner of the bus, next to an empty bottle, a final mark on a brilliant but brief life. Shannon's death wasn't just an accident. It was the climax of a foretold tragedy. He burned bright, but that flame went out, leaving a mystery. Did he want to go? Or was he just a victim of the darkness in his mind? Did Shannon choose to end his life? Or did the shadows swallow him without anyone noticing? Conclusion: Shannon's legacy and lessons from the abyss. Shannon Hoon left us at 28, leaving a void no one could fill. But his story didn't end on that tour bus. Blind Melon released Nico in 1996, a tribute album, its proceeds supporting his daughter Nico Blue and addiction programs. The band broke up in 1999, reunited in 2006 with singer Travis Warren, but the old magic never returned. Shannon's music lives on. No Rain and Change are gems of the 90s, echoing in the hearts of millions, from Dream Theater to the Avett Brothers. The documentary, All I Can Say, made from over 200 hours of Shannon's home videos, shows a man both gifted and fragile. He wasn't just a star, he was a soul battling himself. In 2015, 20-year-old Nico Blue took the stage in Lafayette, singing Change with Blind Melon. Her voice trembled, reconnecting with her father, moving the crowd to tears. Shannon's legacy goes beyond music. He's a warning about fame's cost. The 90s music industry, with its harsh demands and drug-fueled temptations, devoured souls like Shannon and Kurt Cobain. He longed to be loved, to be understood, but faced judgment and was pushed into darkness. His pain, the pain of someone the world turned its back on, speaks to anyone who's felt lost. The silver ring, once his talisman, now symbolizes the fight he lost, but also the heart that burned so bright. Mysteries linger. Rumors of the demons he mentioned, or the "I'm sorry, Nico" note, make us wonder. Was Shannon hiding a bigger secret? A childhood wound, as some speculate? Or just the whispers of a broken mind? We may never know. But his story teaches us to look deeper at stars. Behind the glamour are people with unseen scars. When you hear No Rain today, think of Shannon, the Dayton boy who dreamed of being a superhero, who sang with all his heart, and who fell too soon. He left behind Nico, his music, and a lesson. Fame can be a light, but also a shadow. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Shannon's death was an accident? Or was something darker at play? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of tragedy and lives that burned bright before fading. Shannon Hoon is gone, but his light lingers in No Rain, in Nico, and in our hearts.